Hi, welcome back. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to reattach this roof. Haven't been sleeping well trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And I think my plan is I'm going to weld this plate to the rear because it's nice and straight. And then I'll trim the front section to fit this plate here. So let's do it. And this is actually thicker metal, which is good, because when I MIG weld this, when I weld this, I'm going to hit this metal first and let the weld work its way to this metal. It'll turn out better. And if I heat this up and push this up like I think I'm going to do, it'll turn out even better. Because see, if I put a little bit of pressure on this and I weld here, when that weld cools, should hold that form. So let's get this on there and I'll quit talking about it. Oh, my glasses are going to be in the bus. Well, you blow holes through your metal that you're trying to weld when you forget your machine's turned up. So I got that back corner tacked in. I'm finding that I'm getting a little flustered, especially after blowing that hole. Really frustrated me. When I get frustrated, I just take a break. I clean up, because this is dangerous. You can walk right into it. Put some stuff away and come back to it when it's a little bit safer and cleaner environment. Well, that's better. So I've got my center section tacked in. It's not molded like I want it, so it's going to take some hammering and dollying to get it better. It's not going to be perfect. I don't know. I'm kind of satisfied. I'm really not wanting to cut this, but I got no other choice. It's the only way I want to do it. You can put pressure on these and pull them in, but then the windshield would look weird. I'm not okay with that. Well, good morning. We've got a crater here to make not a crater. I've got this piece of steel clamped to the roof, and I need to get that dip out. And then when I'm done with that dip, I need to cut these front corners off. But I figured I wanted to get the contour done before I do that. That way I'm not fighting it later on when more material's on there. Well, that's better. When I hammered this, I tried to just hit where my welds are to push that metal up. And it kind of worked. It's got more shape to it than it did before. We can even, maybe I shouldn't do this because it'll make me want to do it again. But there was a pretty good gap there before, and now it's getting flatter. And then once we secure everything else, we'll work it some more and get it up. So what I've got to do now is cut this section off the truck. When I cut this off, I'll have this piece, and I need to trim it on this piece or here to get this to go in. The only flat spot that I have that I want to work with is right here, right off the hinge. And I should have removed this hinge before I welded it to the truck, but I'll leave that up to the owner because I don't want to deal with it right now. So I'm going to take and cut this probably right up through the bullet hole, and we'll start trimming this to fit because I've got a big gap. You can see right here how far in this needs to go, so I can take material out up here when I've got this off, and then I can take material out in the front and then get it to fit in there. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. Cool. Let's cut it. I'm using my template because I want this to be a straight cut. If you cut straight lines on both sides, it makes the fitment so much easier. When you use these as a grinder, the cutoff wheel, like to smooth your edges out, don't keep using them. See how that's got, it looks worn out on the inside here? It's brittle. Get rid of it. Get a new one. It's dangerous. The thing will just blow apart. You're not supposed to use these as a grinder, but I do. I just made my first mistake of the day. It happens. I was going to brace this up and tack something on the windshield to keep this supported while I had this off. So I need to figure that out real quick. So now I've got my roof corner and I've got to trim it back. I'm kind of guessing, but I'm going to guess based off these screws or bolts, whatever you call them. So I'm going to go just to the outside of these flatheads and cut it off. That ought to work. Grab a clamp. This is the part of the job I've been dreading the most. And a lot of times when I just get going and get it done, it wasn't as bad as I made it out to be. It's the story of my life. Actually looks like it's really close. A little more. Oh boy. Well, this is where I'm going to leave off on this video. Got a couple hours to edit. I don't want to add to that, but we've got to refit this piece back on the car. I've already trimmed here, and we should be able to tack this up when it's where it's nice and flush here, and then we'll pull this up and tack it. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.